Okay, let's jump into a deep dive on a topic that feels really big right now, where AI is heading.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. But we're not trying to boil the ocean here. We're zeroing in on um, a specific viewpoint using some material you brought, extracts from Sam Altman's piece, The Gentle Singularity.
That's right. So the mission for us today is really unpacking this text. What's Altman arguing about, where we are now and where digital superintelligence is going very soon?
Yeah.
We want to pull out the key ideas from his angle on it.
And it kicks off as something pretty surprising, doesn't it? This idea that we're already past the event horizon.
hmm Metaphorically speaking, yeah.
Right.
Like past the point of no return.
And that the takeoff has started, so this big acceleration is already underway.
Exactly. That's the setup. But then what's really interesting is he immediately follows up by saying, well, it feels much less weird than it should be.
Right. Like you look around, no robots marching down the street. Most of our day isn't, just talking to AI.
Precisely. So there's this gap between the claim huge change underway and the sort of everyday reality.
But the source seems to argue that feeling is kind of deceptive. It says systems that are smarter than us in lots of ways do exist already.
Yeah, and that they're already amplifying what humans can do,
Yeah.
like significantly. The argument is the really hard bit, the fundamental science breakthroughs needed for today's AI. That's mostly done.
Okay. And that those breakthroughs alone will take us very far.
And what's key here, from this source's perspective, is how AI makes the biggest difference. It's seen as driving faster scientific progress and boosting productivity.
So that's the path to a, quote, vastly better future. It's all about speeding up science as the main engine for human improvement.
That's the core idea, yeah.
Okay, so if the groundwork is laid and things are accelerating, what does the source actually predict for, like, right now in the next couple of years? It gets surprisingly concrete.
It does, which really stands out, is 2025. So this year has already seen agents that can do real cognitive work
Real cognitive work. Okay.
and makes this really bold claim that writing code will never be the same because of it.
Wow. Okay.
Then looking just ahead, it suggests 2026 will likely see the arrival of systems that can figure out novel insights.
So not just executing tasks, but generating new ideas.
Kind of, yeah. And by 2027, we may see the arrival of robots that can do tasks in the real world.
Ah, okay. So physical tasks, maybe not walking down the sidewalk like you said, but actual physical work. That's an important difference.
Definitely.
So how does this text see all this acceleration impacting people? Jobs, for instance.
Well, it acknowledges these tools mean more people can create things, like software or art.
Yeah,
But it also suggests, experts using these tools will probably still be way ahead.
makes sense.
The really big change highlighted is just how much more a single person can get done. Like someone in 2030 compared to 2020, a huge difference in output. The source kind of assumes people will adapt and find ways to use that extra capability.
But it also throws in this sort of balancing idea that
Yeah.
in the really fundamental ways, the 2030s might not be that different.
All right, people will still care deeply about family, creativity, games, connecting with each other, that core human stuff.
But
But yeah, there's a but. The source says while those core things remain, the 2030s will be wildly different from any time that has come before in other ways, other still very important ways.
and this leads us to maybe the biggest claim in the whole piece.
I think so, yeah, that in the 2030s, intelligence and energy ideas and the ability to make ideas happen are going to become wildly abundant.
Wildly abundant. That's a statement.
It really is. That's the heart of the massive economic shift it envisions. The argument is that intelligence and energy, they've been the fundamental limiters on human progress for a long time.
Oh, okay.
So if those two things become essentially super cheap and available, the text suggests we can theoretically have anything else, assuming, we govern things well.
And it uses this phrase, wonders become routine, to describe how that might actually feel.
Exactly. Like the ChatGPT example. First, we're amazed it could write a paragraph. Then, like almost overnight, we expect it to write a novel.
Or moving from AI helping with a diagnosis to expecting it to help cure diseases.
Right. That's the gentle part of this gentle singularity idea in the source. It's not one big boom, but this continuous process where amazing stuff quickly becomes normal, expected, the new baseline.
So living through it feels like climbing a smooth curve. Even if looking back, it seems almost vertical.
Yeah, that's the idea. It feels manageable moment to moment.
The source also talks about specific self-reinforcing loops driving this acceleration. What are those?
It lays out a few pretty powerful feedback cycles. First, and this is a big one, using AI itself to make AI research go faster.
Ah, AI helping build better AI.
Yeah. The source throws out numbers like doing a decade of research in a year, maybe even a month. Now, it clarifies this isn't quite AI rewriting its own code autonomously yet,
Okay,
but it calls it a larval version of recursive self-improvement, kind of the early stage.
got it. So AI speeding up AI research. What else?
Then there's the economic flywheel. Basically, these systems create so much value, it drives massive compounding investment in building more infrastructure, more data centers, basically.
Right, the demand fuels the supply build out.
And the third one is critical, automated production chains. The idea that robots could build other robots, or data centers could build other data centers.
Whoa. Okay, so the tools needed for more AI can eventually build themselves. That sounds like a recipe for extremely rapid scaling.
Exactly. That's a potentially huge accelerator.
Yeah.
The source gives this hypothetical. Maybe we build the first million robots the old-fashioned way, but those robots could then potentially take over the whole supply chain.
Mining, making stuff, moving it around.
All of it. Everything needed to build the next million robots, the next generation of chips, the next data centers. It fundamentally changes the speed limit, potentially.
And tying this back to that idea of abundant intelligence, the source makes a specific point about the cost.
Yes. It suggests that as this automated production scales up, the cost of intelligence should eventually converge to near the cost of electricity.
Near the cost of electricity. Wow.
It even gives some specific stats, which are kind of mind-boggling when you think about the scale. Like one ChatGPT query uses about 0.34 watt-hours of energy
Tiny.
and about 0.00085 gallons of water. So individually minuscule, but yeah, multiply that by billions.
Right, it adds up. But the trend, according to the source, is towards making it incredibly cheap and efficient.
Towards that convergence point, yeah. And the text is quite clear that even with all this rapid change, humanity is capable of adapting to almost anything.
It doesn't shy away from the challenges, though.
No, it acknowledges the very hard parts like, whole classes of jobs going away. But the argument is the world will get so much richer so fast.
That we can afford to think about solutions we couldn't before, like new policies.
Exactly. Seriously entertain new policy ideas we never could before is how it's
Mhm.
phrased.
And it suggests people adapt quickly, figure out new things to do, new desires, drawing a parallel to like after the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, the idea is expectations and capabilities rise together. We just end up with better stuff overall.
And it brings up something interesting about humans versus AI or inherent nature.
Right, that we're sort of hardwired to care about other people, what they think, what they do. But we don't care very much about machines in the same way. That might be an enduring difference.
There's also that really fascinating analogy it uses about fake jobs. Can you unpack that a bit?
Yeah, it's a thought experiment to help imagine the future of work. It says, imagine a subsistence farmer from 1,000 years ago. Their life is about pure survival, right?
Right. Finding food, shelter.
They look at many of our modern jobs where basic needs are met, there's plenty of food, even luxury, and they genuinely think they're fake jobs, like we're just playing games because we don't have to struggle for survival in the same way.
Okay, I see where this is going.
So the hope presented is that we will look at the jobs people do 1,000 years from now, and those jobs will seem like very fake jobs to us.
Even though presumably they'll feel incredibly important and meaningful to the people doing them then.
Exactly. It's a way to challenge our current ideas about what meaningful work even is. Maybe its nature just evolves completely.
That's pretty mind-bending. It really reframes the whole AI taking jobs concern, doesn't it?
It offers a different long-term perspective for sure. And the source anticipates just an immense rate of new wonders becoming routine by 2035.
It paints a picture of incredibly rapid progress, like solving big physics problems one year, starting space colonization the next.
Or materials science breakthroughs leading quickly to high-bandwidth brain-computer interfaces. Stuff like that could become the norm year after year.
But even with all that potential transformation, the source keeps coming back to that gentle idea, that living through it will feel impressive but manageable.
Still like climbing that continuous, smooth curve of exponential progress. It reinforces this by asking us to compare how predictions about having AGI by 2025 felt back in, say, 2020.
Seem pretty radical then.
Yeah, versus how the actual last 5 years have felt living through them day by day. Less jarring than maybe we imagined.
That's a good point. That relativistic view is key to the whole gentle singularity argument.
It is. But the source is equally strong that this positive future isn't guaranteed. There are serious challenges to confront.
And it names them very specifically safety and alignment.
Precisely. The absolute necessity of solving the safety issues, technically and societally, that's one. And the other is the critically important task of solving the alignment problem.
Okay, so what exactly does the source mean by the alignment problem? How does it define that?
It defines alignment as being able to uh, robustly guarantee that we get AI systems to learn and act towards what we collectively really want over the long term.
What we collectively want long term.
Okay. And it draws a really sharp contrast here. It compares genuinely aligned systems to misaligned ones we already have, like social media feeds.
Ah, okay. How so?
Well, it said those feeds are incredible at getting you to keep scrolling. They exploit our short-term preferences very cleverly, right? But often that overrides what we actually want long-term or what's good for us.
Right. They optimize for engagement, not necessarily well-being or our biggie goal.
Exactly. So alignment is about making sure these super powerful AIs are aimed at broad human values and long-term good, not some narrow, potentially harmful goal they might optimize for instead.
That makes sense. It's a huge challenge.
Huge. And connected to that, the source really hammers the point that superintelligence needs to be cheap, widely available, and not too concentrated.
Not just in the hands of one person or company or country.
Right. It argues that society can adapt, but we need to harness our collective will and wisdom. We need to decide on the broad bounds for this technology.
So democratic input, societal consensus on the rules of the road.
Seems to be the implication, yeah. The source kind of frames the current work as building a brain for the world, one that will eventually be super personalized, easy to use.
And limited only by good ideas. It even jokes that idea guys might finally have their moment.
Huh, yeah, it does say that. And it wraps up by circling back to that core economic idea. Intelligence too cheap to meter is well within grasp.
Using that same comparison again, how radical this sounds now, just like predictions from 2020 sounded radical then.
Exactly. The hope expressed is to scale smoothly, exponentially, and uneventfully through superintelligence.
Okay, so let's try and sum up this specific perspective we've unpacked from the source. The main argument seems to be the singularity isn't some future cliff we fall off. It's like already here, it's happening now, accelerating.
Right, driven by science breakthroughs we've already had, plus these self-reinforcing loops, AI, helping AI research, the economic investment cycle, automated production.
And all this leads towards a future where, according to this source, intelligence and energy become wildly abundant.
Yep. And the key takeaways we pulled out just from this text are things like those specific predictions for 2025, 26, 27.
The huge impact on productivity, how work might change, those examples of accelerating research and automated factories.
And that idea an intelligence cost dropping towards the cost of electricity, with those specific energy and water stats giving a sense of scale.
And crucially, this idea that living through it, despite the speed, will feel manageable, that smooth curve feeling, using that 2020 versus 2025 lived experience as an example.
But balanced with a very clear warning about the huge challenges. Safety, technical and societal, absolutely has to be solved.
And alignment, making sure AI aims for what we collectively really want long term, unlike, say, social media feeds optimizing for clicks.
Yes, and making sure this power is cheap, widespread, and not concentrated. That's vital according to this source.
So thinking about this perspective, how it might shift how you, the listener, see AI news unfolding. If this view is even partly right, if wonders do become routine and those big limits, intelligence and energy really do become abundant, what does that unlock? What could humanity actually achieve?
It definitely forces you to rethink the limits of the possible, doesn't it?
For sure. And one final thought to leave you with, drawn straight from the source's themes. If jobs 1,000 years from now might look like very fake jobs to us today.
Just like our jobs might look fake to a farmer from 1,000 years ago.
What does that really tell us about what meaningful work even is? Could its nature change in ways we just can't imagine right now?
And tied to that, what does society, all of us, need to start figuring out, like now, about setting those broad bounds for a technology this powerful? Lots to think about there.